Hello, everybody, and welcome to Business Divas. This is Hello Hump Day, and we are here with Miss Debra Morrison, and I'm going to read her bio, and that is Debra Morrison is a transformational and TEDx speaker, and now a financial coach in women navigating finances, having sold her fee-only fiduciary financial planning and asset management company, which she founded and in which she worked for 42 years. That was a mouthful. Debra's been featured on CNN, ABC, MSG's, Metro Money, and many, 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 many more. She's a she's a certified grief coach and Amazon best-selling author of My Husband Died and Now What? And A Widow's Guide to Grief and Recovery and Smart Financial Decisions. Welcome, Debra. How are you today?
Thanks, Dotty. I'm real pleased to be with you, and let's get right to it.
Yes, I have known you for, probably 10 or 15 years, and I have always wondered how it is that you became self-employed. Can you share a little bit of your journey?
Yeah, it was actually a very, very quick one. I was president of my senior class in college, and I mean, that and a bag of chips, right? But that I had interviewed because I had kind of boasted like I'm going to have a job when I walk the aisle, right? Well, when I walked the aisle, I didn't have a job, right? And I had applied to a certain insurance mega company to be an underwriter. Now we look back at my personality and we think, I mean, really, that was a horrible mismatch. Like the only thing worse might have been an actuary, but it just sounded fun and sexy to me. So I applied to be an underwriter and I was denied. I didn't have the right degree. So I then took a position with that same company as a claims examiner because after all, I did need a job. And so I went on the job the first day and I had this little desk and I looked to my left and there was a woman that was probably, 60, and she had a pile on her desk, Dottie, this high. It was incredibly high. You could, and on the other side, you could hardly see her.
A
And
pile of papers?
papers, files, the whole thing. Yeah. And then I looked over here on my right, and there's a guy, couldn't be 23, 4 years old. His desk was clean as a whistle. And I go over to her and I said, Ann, how long have you been with this company? And she said, 28 years. And I said, how many raises have you gotten? And she said, 4.
That
And
doesn't sound good.
no, it was not good at all. And then at lunch, the company's newsletter came out, and it said that the position of underwriter was given to Bob, McGillicuddy, with a degree BS in BA, Business Administration, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, my degree.
Ah,
And
so they fibbed to you.
I said to myself, you have a choice. The first half day in the corporate world, and you can file for a sex discrimination suit, or you can just shake the dust from your feet and move on. And I put in my resignation after being on the job like 4.5 hours. It was hysterical. I said, do you want me to, work out a couple of days, because you generally don't just quit, but they were like, no, not so much. So I quit and I had no job. Well, the next day I got a call from John Hancock, as it turned out, and they said, I don't know what happened to your test results. Initially, they were deep sixed in somebody's desk. We just found them. They were off the charts. We'd love to talk with you. And I took that interview. And I originally had applied with them because they were the only big, huge financial company. Like I went to a small college, my Morgan Stanley and the Wall Street firms weren't coming to my college. So insurance companies were coming to my college. And this insurance company, John Hancock at the time, was the only major insurance company that had a wholly owned subsidiary CEO'd by a woman. And they also had a wholly owned subsidiary that was about investments. And that was my true love. And that's why I applied with them. And so
Can you tell me what year this is?
Oh, yeah, 1978.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of you weren't even born. And so there it was. And they said, and I said, wow, yeah, because I really love investments. And they said, not so fast. Why don't you sell life insurance first? And I was just like, I was raised on a little humble 100-acre farm. I'm like, oh, I know I've heard of life insurance, but kind of what is it? And they described the product to me, Dottie, and I just sat there like jaw agape, right? Like, oh my heart, this product keeps families together, it keeps business together. And I took the position and I bolted out of the gate and I sold life insurance like there was no tomorrow. I led the agency in my first year. I was 23 years old.
Yay. And
So
you
it was
didn't even know anything about life insurance.
I didn't. And so I had this beautiful wooden rosewood attaché in one hand and a towel to wipe the wet behind my ears in the other hand. And I had at the time one gray hair and I pulled it completely to the front, almost to the pasting it, right? And that was like just my beginning, which was really interesting, really interesting.
Awesome. So then how did you graduate from working at John Hancock, right?
Yes.
To owning your own company? Like that's a huge jump.
Yes, it is. It is. A funny story, actually. I was dressed up in, three-piece suits and so forth, and heels, and I was driving to an appointment in York, Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, and it was snowing like the band, and to beat the band, and my car stopped. And so I'm pushing my car through this intersection in high heels, a three-piece suit, and a winter coat. And like one guy comes up and helps me. I go into the office the next day. I don't even know how I got there. And I said, my car died. And my office mate, who was a retired Navy colonel, white wavy hair, he said, let's go down to the BMW place. And I said, what's BMW? It was so crazy. And so we went down and I got like enthralled with this BMW. And I came back and I told my sales manager, I said, I bought a BMW. And he was ecstatic. He was pushing me out the door because it was like the size of a mortgage payment. So he knew I would have to sell to me. Well, I sold anyway. But the fact is, then I went into his office after the first year and I said, okay, boys, I sold life insurance. Now let's talk about investments. And so I began doing the licensure for investments. And there were a couple levels. And there was a Series 6, which you could sell in annuities and mutual funds. And then there was a Series 7, and you could sell stocks. And I thought, why do the Series 6? I went right into the Series 7. Everybody was like, don't do that. It's really hard. And I studied and I got it. And then I began really buckling down to know and learn about investments and then tax advantaged investments. So there was the progression because I knew full well that the integration of income taxes was really important. So I'd go to people's houses that were pretty high net worth and I would say, I've got this tax advantaged investment along with the life insurance. And I would ask them, let me see your tax return. And they were like, person after person, like, we never had a life insurance agent ask us to see our tax return. And I said, yes, but I'm not just a life insurance person. So then I progressed to planning was pretty new in the day. And there was an area realtor who was really huge. And he then decided to smush a planning organization with his realty organization. So then I did a bunch of speaking and to his, it was called Silver Citizens, I think, and people that were like, going into retirement and moving in, and I would come and talk with them about tax advantaged investments and how they could buy, here's what it was, how they could buy a bigger house than what they thought they could afford. The realtors were loving me because I was talking about the deduction for the mortgage interest, right? So right. I had no problem, having clients. And then I progressed to then that one life insurance company, Lincoln, as it was, Lincoln National, it peeled off of that planning firm. And the general agent, who was a good friend of mine, he says, why don't you come over to our agency, the Lincoln National Agency? And he said, I'd love to have you here. And I thought about it. And he says, because, we really need, good energy and so forth. And I did have good energy. And then I said, very swiftly, I said, Bill, I would be coming in and bringing my equities sales business and all of the renewals, because in the day, there was no way you were fee only. It was all commission. And I would be bringing that into your operation under a equity sales manager whom I have my 4th year commissions, my 4th year renewals would supersede his 1st year commissions by probably 10 to 1. And I'm just not doing that. I'm not giving my override to a person that's not producing. Not that I didn't like the guy, but he didn't have any ingenuity. And Bill immediately said, if you could have the equities director position. Would you come? And I said, tomorrow morning. And so I went over, and they were producing a little bit of equity business. There were about 27, 28 reps. And I completely shifted the whole thing around to storylines. And when wholesalers came in and wanted us to sell their mutual funds, I said, tell me a story about your international investment company who's sending researchers over to Germany to find out the best cement company in Germany. Tell me that story, because that's what my people can go to their clients and tell. And that's what they did. And the production went 300% in the first 6 months.
Wow.
It's just the difference in perspective. And I think that really is at the underlying foundation, Dottie, of entrepreneurship, right? And so from there, I went completely out on my own. And then for 4 years, I was a partner in a $1 billion firm. It ended up being not such a great choice on my part. And I immediately, when I realized that, I said, okay, I can either stop now, quit now, and go back to self-employment, or I can see what I can learn here, because it's a different environment. I chose to see what I could learn. 4 years, learned a lot, and then went on. And from there on, just completely self-employed. And then in 1999, went fee only, which I felt was the best work for me, because I was dealing with some high moneyed people, and I never wanted a person to say or think, what's in this for you, Deborah? Because you could land a $50,000 commission, easily, right? So I went fee only, which meant saying goodbye to all of those renewal commissions. It was a pretty big gulp, right?
Yeah.
So when people say, oh yeah, my friend at Merrill Lynch, she's just like you, I'm like, not so much, but
probably not.
But anyway, so it's just been an interesting progression, and I'm just too incorrigible to be employable, right? I'm just too, type A cubed. I mean, and so my passion drives me to produce and to communicate with people in a way that's far bigger than any salary package.
Right. Right. Now, in all the time that I've known you, every time we talk about something of any subject, I always learn something from you, because you have the best little tidbits. So would you like to share any self-employment tidbits that you have gained along the way?
I'd love it. I think that the word sales, like let's talk about entrepreneurship. And if you're there, God love you. And if you're not there, maybe you come into entrepreneurship, on a side hustle, and it grows, and you start to see that there's a whole lot more energy that you're putting into the side hustle. And so you'll feed and nurture that until it is able to sustain you. And I want you to know one thing, everyone that's considering entrepreneurship, and those that are entrepreneurs. This is different than not-for-profit. We are entrepreneurs to make a profit. We are for-profit as far as the tax code is concerned. So the idea of profiting, actually selling, meeting our costs, forgetting profit, just meeting our costs, is something that is an anathema to far too many entrepreneurs. And I really got around that curve very early in life. And I sat in church, which I was sitting in church quite a lot. We were Christian fundamentalists, 3 times on Sunday, 2 times on Wednesday, a lot of time in church. And I sat there as a young girl, and I thought, that pastor is selling. He's selling. He's selling his message, right? I go to the grocery store, you go to the grocery store, we put all of our things in the basket, and whether we have someone help us or we self-check out, somehow they're asking us for money at the end.
Yep.
That's what's expected. So if and when people want things badly enough, they expect to pay for it. And if they want things really badly, or their situation is really dire, they'll pay a lot of money. So what I like to do is reset our minds, right? Because once our minds are focused, and almost look like blinders on a horse when the horse is about to race. We don't want any periphery. We just want to get down to what's our next, how many calls do we make to get an appointment? How many appointments do we have to make to get a sale? And we check off those no's, because each no is a closer to yes. And I dare each of us as entrepreneurs to, when someone wants to be our client, now maybe not a huge client and a completely premier client, but if it's a borderline person and they're kind of like testing the waters, we'll say, I love that, Dotty. And based on the conversation we've had, I think that what I offer could be of tremendous value. And I am booked right now and I have people on a wait list, but I'd happily take you come June 1st. So we'll be in touch before then. And they will break the door down. No, Shirley, you can't take me in. All you have to say is, no, the door's shut. And somehow people figure out a way that they need in that door. It's FOMO, it's scarcity principle, whatever.
Yeah. Yep, I've used that one.
Of course, it's perfect. The other thing that I learned early on, and was very early, 23, you're selling life insurance. Well, I bought the BMW. And what did I buy? Anthracite, the darkest gray, beautiful luster car, because it made me look 40 years old when I walked out of it, right? So in the day, I was driving to people's houses. I drive to this guy's house, and he hands me a check for $100,000 for a mutual fund investment. I took that check from him like it was the fourth one I'd taken that day. I go to the car completely at ease, completely cool. I get in the car, I started back out. I get down 2 streets away. I pulled over and I started shaking like a leaf. Like I had never held a check for $100,000. But what I suggest that we do is think of your highest price product or service.
Mm-hmm.
Now, multiply that times 10 and imagine me or any client prospect coming up to you and saying, I'll take that. And I want you to look in the mirror as you say, thank you. What credit card will you use? And I want you to look in the mirror and make sure that you're not flinching.
Right.
I want us to get comfortable with those dollars. Add a zero.
Because we love zeros.
Love zeros. So again, it's really about igniting or reigniting our passion, whatever it is we're doing, product sales, a combination. If we're excited about it, right, it will be contagious. And I've often said, what I have has been interesting to me. I developed it because of so many people I saw in life that were, and I often say, it breaks my heart to see people spending and wasting valuable time, right? Mm-hmm. When they don't have to. It breaks my heart to see people doing the same routine over and over, hoping and praying for a different result. So I say, save your hope and your prayer for life's big problems: illness, accidents, bad diagnoses, tragedies. Let's do the planning up front and say, what we have is valuable, else we wouldn't have started doing it. And we need to find the people for whom their situation is our exact ideal client.
Yes.
And sometimes we have to say, this isn't for everyone. You have a choice. Now, rather than us thinking that our choices or the choice to not buy has no consequence, we have to be ready with the consequence. See, you have a choice. You can risk further upset and further family disarray. You can risk, trying to juggle which bill you're going to pay. You can risk not knowing if your retirement account is going to last as long as you will. You can risk the declination of the health of you or your family or friend. You can risk all those things. Yet why, when this solution has worked for so many people? And I'm happy to give you referrals and references for people who were just as dubious as you, because it's rather unique, I want to say. And I came into this space filling this unique need, or maybe this pedestrian need, in a unique way, right? In a unique way. And that is going to, I think, pique some interest because, I say, this isn't for everybody. There are toll roads in almost every state, certainly in New Jersey, toll roads, the Turnpike, the Garden State Parkway, and then there are through town.
Mm-hmm.
Take your pick.
Yep.
Right.
And I have noticed that every business out there has clients that they don't need. You know what I mean? because it really is, your business is not for everybody, and
right.
you need to find the right people.
Mm-hmm.
So that is an awesome tip.
Yeah, I mean, selling life insurance, the joke was anybody could fog a mirror because they'd have to pass the medical, right? So they have to fog a mirror, right? They have to false. So that was pretty funny. Yet ultimately, and I was asked this on live television on CNN across from Stuart Varney. Deborah, what's your best asset? And across the Chiron is Debra Morrison, certified financial planner, and everything. And the question took me so by surprise, and it was like one of those instant, like, oh God, give me the answer, right? And sure enough, God gave me the words, and I said, Stuart, I have two assets in life: time and health. I thought he was going to fall off the producer chair. Oh my heart, we have a certified financial planner talking about time and health. I got to take a station break. And he did. And he was sweating. And I said, really, I have buried clients and friends with groups of zeros, and they would trade most of those for another dance with their partner, another kiss, another day, a hike, a camping trip, a wedding.
Yep.
Being able to attend the wedding. So if we get those priorities right, we don't have time to deal with anybody that can fog a mirror, because we want people that their problem is so unique and so palpable. They've explained it. So we're going to develop the relationship. We're all about that. And then we're going to say, Dotty, based on the conversation we've had, it feels like, and if I heard you correctly, you have this income goal, and you've now just been able to move into a larger house, but you want to furnish it, or you've gotten downsized, and so this is the crunch, and this is the bogey you have to meet, and you get the buy-in as you recanting the conversation. And what are you doing the entire time?
Yep. Thinking about that whole thing.
Yeah. And you're shaking your head, yes. Maybe not quite as obvious as I did just to get everyone's attention, but you're just nodding. You're nodding. Yeah. Yeah. And as soon as you say yes and I say yes, and pretty soon nobody's breaking anybody's arm. I am coming to the rescue with my product and sales and services that is going to give you relief, maybe life itself, or extended life, or happiness in the time you have left. So when I sold life insurance, plenty of people said no. And I got real smart after a while. I had it all typed out in the day. I'm typing on typewriter, right? Now I'm really dating myself. And I had a little sheet of white paper, and I had the person's name there. I, so-and-so, realized that Debra Morrison has proposed that I have, and I had a blank there because I didn't know what the amount of insurance that I was guessing that they should have, all
Right.
circumstances, blank of insurance. And I'm choosing not to buy it at this time. And I had the date filled in, and I had to sign. So I said, fine, Bill, I don't, it's a free country, it's fine. But, because my manager really wants to know, what I've been up to and so forth, I just need you to know that I proposed this, you've decided against it. So if you just sign here, I'll take it back to my manager, and everything will be fine. Well, the people looked at this thing and said, I refuse to take this life insurance agent's recommendation. And I think maybe one person signed it in all the time. They're like, okay, I'll buy it, because they hadn't thought about the consequence of them not buying. It's not just saying, okay, I want to get this life insurance agent off my kitchen table, her elbow off my kitchen table, and get her out of here. It's like, wait a minute, you told me that if you died yesterday and you're making $50,000 a year, you wanted to buy your family 4 years of recovery time, of readjustment time, and 50 times 4 is 200,000. If you have a mortgage, another 200,000, 400,000 term insurance. Are there any questions?
So if I'm hearing you right, what you basically just said was, no matter what your business is, no matter what you're selling, if you have somebody that's on the fence, that you need to be able to tell them the consequences of not using your service or product, so that they're really thinking about whether they need it or not.
Yeah.
That's genius.
Well, it's a little ballsy, I have to say, pardon the French, but the fact is that I realize that some people would just push it aside, I suspect, but I really didn't. I mean, by this point in the conversation, now I've probably been talking with them 45 minutes, an hour. We've exchanged stuff.
Okay.
They trusted me up until third base. It's just they can't round third base and pull the trigger. And so I have failed them somehow that they're still sitting on third base. So this basically gives them an opportunity to kind of see in black and white, wow, this professional, right? As I have degrees and so forth. Oh, that's the other thing. I knew as a young woman, young little woman in an old white male's field had to have a lot of initials. So I got the certified financial plan. I got the Series 7, first of all, screwed the Series 6, went right to Series 7. And then I got my certified financial planner designation. Not that I learned a whole lot because I crammed for that course. I just needed the initials, right?
Right.
And so the course was supposed to be 3 years. And it was 6 sections at the time. And I asked my sales manager, I said, does anybody, double up, take one course in the morning, the test in the morning, and one course in the afternoon, the test in the afternoon. And he goes, I've never heard of that. And I said, well, I'm going to do it. And
well,
so
you are a groundbreaker.
I am. I took the answers because they were always in the back. I cut them out and literally Elmer glue or taped them into the book. And 3 days before the exam, without exaggeration, 3 days before the exam, I spent an hour and a half on one section. So it was tax, estate planning, insurance, investments, et cetera, 6 levels. And I read through all the questions and the answers, all the questions and the answers, all the questions and the answers. And I put that aside for a day and a half. The next day and a half before the Saturday exam, I did the other level. And I got through all 6 levels in a year and a half. I had my CFP, never failed any of the tests. And as I say, I don't know as I learned as much as I might have, but I had the initials. And so if we're up against systems, we need to figure out how to play the systems, how to reroute our game plan so that we get our valuable product and service out there. And if you don't think your product is valuable or your service is valuable, redo it. Pivot until you have something that you are bursting at the seams to convey to somebody else. Just like if you went to a fantastic restaurant and you say to your friends, hey, my gosh, go here. But it's much bigger than that because our products and services are typically transformational, life-changing.
Yep. And you know what? We're almost out of time. You are a fascinating woman to listen to and learn from. And I want to thank you for your time. Is there anything you wanted to offer our group?
Actually, thanks so much. I have one last little question that I learned from Dan Sullivan in the Strategic Coach. I was in his master's program, and he devised the relationship factor question. And I invite you to write this down. You've had the conversation now with your prospect for a long time, however long. And then you say, and I'll play with you, Dotty. Okay. Dotty, and pretty much you kind of lean back. You're not being pressured at all. You lean back and say, Dotty, let's just imagine that you and I were sitting across from each other 3 years from now.
Okay.
April 21st, 2024. And you hear the cadence. It's not unintentional. I stop. You said, okay, I'm happy you said, okay. And I say, tell me, what needs to have happened for you, personally, professionally, over these past 3 years for you to be happy with our relationship?
Wow, that's a big question. And it would require thought.
And if I'm talking to a single person or a couple, they almost to a person say, ooh, that's a big question. And I say, and if it's a couple, I say, and I want you to answer it. And I almost plug your ears and I want you to answer it because they're so often different. And I want us as salespeople to listen to that and write down on your pad the exact words they say. I want to put my kid through private school. I want to retire early, bada bing, bada bang. And when you write your follow-up letter or email to them, you say, and Bill, you said you wanted to retire early. And Sally, you said you wanted this and that, and you send your child to private school. When they hear their exact words, now they know you have listened.
Yep.
And that is so golden. So golden. So yeah, I invite anybody to come to the Facebook group. It's called Women Navigating Finances. It's a public group. And chime in and sound off with questions. I'll be happy to answer them. And then of course we have a paid group that we offer some exclusive benefits to. And if you want to graduate into that, we are on a wait list right now. We're going to probably open it in May. So pop over to Facebook, join the Women Navigating Finances group. And I'll be happy to welcome you, welcome your questions in general. I'm not a financial advisor anymore, but I'm a financial coach, and I can kind of steer you your financial car's proverbial tire away from the big deep potholes and towards navigating your finances. And that would please me very much.
Great. We'll go ahead and put a link to that in the comments after our live session is over. I want to thank you for your time. And for everybody out there, next week, we will be having Raksha live with us. And she is someone who's been in the corporate world for a very, very long time and has graduated to being self-employed as well. So we will learn all about what her process was. So we'll sign off for now. Thank you, Debra, and have an awesome day.
Thanks, Dotty. You too.